Is IonQ a buy or a sell? Let's get started with the model. This is a mid-cap company, $9 billion market cap. They're trading at $42 a share, and they have 215 million shares outstanding. IonQ is a leader in quantum computing. The company offers some of the most useful and capable quantum computers in the industry. It was incorporated in 2015, headquartered in College Park, Maryland. Let's take a look at their financials. The way you value a company is you estimate the free cash flows into the future, and then you discount those numbers back to today's value. That's what we're doing in this video. And free cash flow is cash flow from operations minus capital expenditures. They do have negative free cash flow, and it gets worse each year. Net income is the profit or loss on the income statement. It's revenue minus expenses. That's also negative every single year. And the reason it's negative is because their revenue is so low. It was $2 million in 2021. Now it's $37 million in the trailing 12 months. $37 million is a lot of revenue for most businesses. But for a business like this that has lots of fixed costs, $37 million is peanuts. We estimated 4 years of future free cash flows. We also estimated a terminal value, which is all cash flows past year 4, that's $14 billion. We discounted those numbers back to today using the weighted average cost of capital. We get a value of the company of $8.7 billion. We divide that by 215 million shares. And we get a calculated stock price of $40. They're trading at $42, so they're trading at a 4% premium. It's a sell according to the model. I estimated by 2027 they would hit $5 billion of revenue and convert 20% of that to free cash flow. That's how I got the $1 billion. There are 33 companies in the same industry as IonQ, and if they have a number in red, they're worse than the median. If they have a number in blue, they're better. They invest $26 million in CapEx, the same as Arista. Dell is the most at $2.6 billion. CapEx is the investments in property, plant, and equipment. They're debt-free. A lot of companies are debt-free in this industry. They don't pay a dividend. HP pays the highest at 4.3%. Then Seagate 4.1%. They have the worst free cash flow, negative $120 million. The average is $620 million. The median is 0. The most is Arista, $3.2 billion. They rank 10th in market cap at $9 billion. They're about 30% behind Logitech. I'm using a Logitech mouse as we speak, and they make a lot of great gaming accessories. They're trading at 20 times book value. Price to book is stock price over book value per share. We can't look at their PE. They have negative earnings. We can't look at their price to free cash flow, negative free cash flow. They're trading at 240 times revenue. That's because their revenue is so small relative to their market cap. We can't look at their 5-year annual revenue growth rate. They have not been public that long. They're trading at $42, 13% below their 52-week high. At one point in the past 52 weeks, the stock was trading below $7. So you could be up 500% if you picked it up at this low level. If you did, you're brilliant, and let me know in the comments. Look at quantum computing. Just the name quantum makes the stock go up 3,800%. That's the difference between its current price and its 52-week low. So you could have 39x your investment if you got it at the low. If you put $10,000 into this company when they started trading in January 2021, about a year later, you would have been at $26,000. Then a year after that, you would have been down about 40%. Then a year after that, you would have been at $13,000, $14,000. Then a few months later, you would have been down 20%. A few months after that, you would have been at $37,000. This stock is a true roller coaster ride. To summarize, I have them trading at a 4% premium, ranking 4 out of 10. I don't really like this stock too much, but I would buy it as a swing trade. So 5 out of 10 short term. I would definitely not hold it long term. Extremely risky. Ratios are terrible, 1 out of 10. We can't even look at their PE or price to free cash flow. And their price to sales is in another stratosphere. Financials 2 out of 10. Their revenue is going up each year, but it's still next to nothing. Let's take a look at their income statement. Here's a third quarter of 23, third quarter of 24. Revenue doubled from $6 million to $12.4 million. But still, $12.4 million is a really small amount of revenue for a company with a $9 billion market cap. Here they give a breakdown of their revenue. $6.3 billion is specialized quantum computing hardware. $6.1 million is platform consulting and support services. Over 90% of their revenue is in the US. Only $500,000 outside the US. So revenue is up 102% from last year. The increase was driven by progress on our arrangements to build specialized quantum computing hardware, also from new service revenue contracts. Their cost of revenue is $6.5 million. That's up 224% from last year. So it's up a lot more than revenue. The increase in cost of revenue was driven by an increase in hardware costs, as well as an increase in labor costs. Below cost of revenue is their operating expenses, R&D. That went up 35% from $25 million to $33 million. That's an increase of $8.6 million. $6.8 million of the increase is due to payroll. Of the $6.8 million, $4.4 million is stock-based compensation. That's due to an increased headcount and new equity grants. Also, $500,000 increase in materials, supplies, and equipment costs. The remaining increase is due to an increase in costs for R&D, including a $400,000 increase in professional service fees and a $700,000 increase in overhead costs. Below that is sales and marketing. That's up 31% from $5 million to $6.6 million, an increase of $1.6 million. There was a $1.7 million increase in payroll. $900,000 of that is stock-based compensation. That's offset by a decrease of $100,000 in professional service fees. Then you have G&A. That went up very little, only up 3%. That's $14.3 million for the third quarter of 2024. There was a $1.9 million increase in payroll. $1.6 million of that is stock-based compensation. And there was a decrease of $1.5 million in professional service fees and allocated overhead costs. Below that is depreciation and amortization. That went up 78% from $2.7 to $4.9 million, an increase of $2.1 million. The increase was driven by an increase of $700,000 and $800,000 in depreciation expense associated with capitalized quantum computing system costs and other property and equipment. Also an increase of $600,000 due to amortization of capitalized internal use software. They have to revalue their warrants. Warrants are long-dated options. That went from a loss of $7.6 million to a loss of $3.9 million. The increase was due to mark-to-market adjustments based on the changes in the trading price for their public warrants. So that's how they mark-to-market the securities based on the current stock price. They have $4.5 million of interest income. That went down $500,000. The decrease was driven by a decrease in the available for sale investments, offset by higher interest rates. Here's the regular income statement. Revenue $12.4 million. Operating costs $65 million. An operating loss of $53 million. A net loss of $53 million. And there's 214 million shares outstanding. That gives them a loss per share of 24 cents. Last year they had 203 million shares outstanding. So they increased their shares 11 million. So they need at least 65 million to cover their operating expenses. And if revenue did go up to 65 million, some of these expenses would increase. They're not all fixed expenses. So their break even is probably around 100 million. But they need at least $1 billion of quarterly revenue to probably be a decent investment. Let's look at a balance sheet. Current assets $400 million, current liabilities $30 million. Really high current ratio. It's above a 10. $30 million of cash. They have $335 million of short-term investments. Here's a breakdown of the $335 million. $64 million of corporate notes and bonds. $272 million of U.S. government agency securities. Both are valued at level 2. Level 1 is the easiest to value. Level 2 is middle. And level 3 is hard to value. $4.1 million of accounts receivable. This is how much money other companies owe them when they sell their product on credit. Prepaid expenses, $26 million. They do give a breakdown of the prepaid expenses. $18 million materials and supplies. $3 million of prepaid expenses. Interest receivable, $2.2 million. This is how much interest they're owed on their investments. Other, $2.3 million. There's $17 million of long-term investments. They give a breakdown of the $17 million. $3 million corporate bonds. $14 million U.S. government securities. Both valued at level 2. They have about $50 million of PP&E. Here's a breakdown of the $50 million. $6 million of computer equipment. $14 million of machinery equipment, furniture, and fixtures. $18 million of leasehold improvements. A leasehold improvement is a change made to a rental property. Sometimes a landlord makes a change. Sometimes a lessee makes a change. Examples are painting, installing light fixtures, redoing the floors, etc. These are not examples of leasehold improvements. Making the building larger, adding elevators and escalators, roofing, fire protection, alarm and security systems, HVACs. A way to think about it is a leasehold improvement have to benefit a specific tenant. So if you add elevators, it's benefiting every tenant. So it's not a leasehold improvement. And sometimes you depreciate a leasehold improvement over 15 years. That's according to the Internal Revenue Code. Some leases include a TI allowance. That's when you give money to the tenant. This puts onus on the tenant to get the job done, not the landlord. It's usually a lump sum, like $50,000, and the tenant can use that money to redo the floors, maybe to paint. Alternatively, the landlord may offer the tenant a discount on their rent in lieu of a leasehold improvement. There are leasehold improvement rules. The landlord and tenant are not allowed to be related. Improvements only qualified if they were made to the interior of the building and only to that specific tenant's space. Also, leasehold improvements were required to be completed after 3 years of the building first being occupied. Leasehold improvement is different from building improvement. A leasehold improvement is just for one tenant. A building improvement is for multiple tenants. If the landlord redid the roof or redid the asphalt in a parking lot, that's a building improvement, not a leasehold improvement. Building improvements help extend the overall life of the structure. Leasehold improvements usually don't. Let's go back to the income statement. Below leasehold improvements is quantum computing systems, 36 million. So the gross PP&E is 73 million, depreciation 24 million. The book value is 49 million. Then you have operating lease right of use assets, 10 million. These are assets another company owns, but they lease. Then you have 17 million of intangible assets. Below that is goodwill, only 700,000, and 8 million of other. So total assets, 500 million. Last year, 550 million. Total liability, 62 million. Accounts payable, this is how much money they owe when they buy on credit. 16 million of accrued expenses. Here's a breakdown of that number. 12 million of salaries, 1.7 million professional services, 200,000 equipment, and 1.3 million of other. They owe 3.1 million on their operating leases. Unearned revenue, 8.3 million. This is when they receive cash for their service, but they haven't provided the service yet. They owe 15 million on operating leases. They owe this beyond 12 months, and they have 12 million of warrant liabilities. The holder of the warrant can exercise the warrant and convert that into stock, which will dilute the shareholders. These are valued at level 1. Assets minus liabilities equals equity, 430 million of equity. They raised 917 million from running their business. They took that $917 million and burned 480 million, so they have 430 million left over. As of 6/30, their accumulated deficit was 429 million. In the second quarter of 2024, they had a net loss of 52 million. So as of 9/30, their accumulated deficit is 480 million. Here's the 917 million of additional paid-in capital. As of 12/31/2023, additional paid-in capital 839 million. Then they added 2.3 million from the exercise of stock options. They added 300,000 from their employees getting restricted common stock. They added 11 million from issuing stock, and they added 64 million from stock-based compensation. Lots of dilution. Here's a statement of cash flows. This is for the trailing 9 months. They had a cash loss in their operating section of 66 million. Last year was 52 million. They gave a lot of stock-based compensation, 68 million. In their investing section, they spent 14 million on PP&E. In their financing section, they had a cash inflow of 2.4 million, mostly from stock options.